Hello, Techers! So I'm here to walk you through your latest exciting project. Let me get my instruction sheet up here. Okay, so you should have the guide, template, or the model of what you're shooting for, how I want it to look at the end, and I'm just going to step you through that process. So the first thing we're going to do is organize the code book here. I'm calling this the code book because it tells me what my different variables are, and these correspond to the different columns over here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is add in a column that gives me a space to add some variable names, and then I'm going to go call this P1, P2, and that's all I need. I'm going to highlight those two things, grab that by the corner there, and then pull it down, and it'll populate that. These I'm going to just label as follow: social conservatism, self-report; economic conservatism, self-report; general conservatism, self-report. We're good. Okay, and then also you see here I still have these PIs that I can get rid of those now. So a nice thing is I can highlight that and then go Control H and type in PI space dash space to capture everything before the label. And then for replace with, I just leave that blank, and then when I hit replace all, it'll pull out that stuff very cleanly. Okay, moving on. Label the data here. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to insert a row. So I just right click on that first number and then choose insert, and it gives me a blank row. I'm going to label these. This is going to be P1, P2. And again, I can just, once I've established that nice little pattern, I can just drag across. And then I'm going to show you something a little fancy for these here. There's this copy and paste function that allows you to transpose something. And so I'm going to copy it here. I'm going to transpose it so it hits these three columns. So it's like this. I go Control C for copy. Then I come up here, I right click, and it'll give me some special paste options. And if I go down to paste special, oops, sorry, something went wrong there. Paste special. Okay, something got messed up. Let's try that again. Okay, copy that, come up here, right click. I'm going to go to paste special, and then I'm going to select transpose, and it'll pull those up there, but it'll switch them from going vertically to horizontally. Obviously you could just retype them as well, but that's just a little trick now that you know. Okay, so let's see. Label self-report columns. I did that. Insert ID and stats column. Okay, so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to insert two different columns. And one of them I'm going to label ID. And I'm going to start that pattern, 1, 2. Highlight those, drag. I have my ID numbers for my participants. Okay, and then I'm going to insert my scale columns. So these, the yellow variables and the blue variables create scales. So this first one, from abortion to military and national security, creates a social conservatism scale. And these last 5 create an economic conservatism scale. So I'm now going to build those scales. So I come in here between the two, I right click, and I insert. I'm going to insert 3 columns. Once I've inserted one, I can just go Control Y, and Control Y repeats the last command. And now I have 3 columns. And so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to label this one social conservatism scale, social conservatism, sorry, economic conservatism. I'm saying this wrong. I'm sorry. These are scaled conservatism values. So this is scaled conservatism social, and this is scaled conservatism economic. Okay, so now what I can do is I'm going to shrink. Oh, I forgot to shrink the column width. So let me do that. So I'm going to come here, highlight all these, and I'm going to shrink these down so it takes up less of my screen. I already inserted the 3-by columns. I labeled these what I wanted. Now I'm going to format the colors. Okay, so I'm going to come here. I want these columns to correspond to these colors. So I'm going to come here, go to Format Paint, and then everything I highlight is going to take on that same formatting. In this case, yellow. So I come over here, click on that cell, go to Format Paint. Now I'm going to highlight all that stuff, make it blue, come over here, Format Paint, and then I'm going to highlight this stuff. And now these scales, I also want to match the same color. So I'm going to go Format Paint. This is going to be my social conservatism scaled value. And then I'm going to get the blue, Format Paint. I'm going to highlight this column, and that'll correspond to those 5 items. Capiche? Okay, once I got that formatting done, I'm going to come along here. I'm going to make these bold and underlined. And I'm going to also center all this stuff because I just think it looks better. Boom. Okay, so I'm done with 3 there. All right, now I'm going to create the scales. So I'm going to use the average function. So I'm going to come in here and go equals average. And then I'm going to highlight one cell and hit comma at a time. So I highlight that cell, comma, comma, When I get the last one, I can just hit enter. It closes it up, and then I got a 4 there. And that 4 is averaging across these 7 values. Okay, I'm going to come here, same thing, average, if I could spell. And then I'm going to pull across, start here, go space, comma, 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 highlight. And then I can either do right paren, as in right parentheses, and hit enter, or just hit enter and it'll figure it out. Okay, now, here's a little technicality. Some of these items are reversed. So if you're a social conservative, you endorse all these things, but you reject abortion. So you expect abortion to be a contrate measure. And down here, same thing with welfare benefits. If you're a fiscal conservative, you endorse these things, but not that one. Actually, you reject that one. So what I need to do is to flip a measure to make a 1 come out of 7 or a 2 come out of 5. I need to subtract those values from 8. Okay, so here's how I do that. I'm going to come in here, and I am going to go to where it says, where my reversed item, which is the first one, and I'm going to put 8 minus that one, and that way that one will get flipped when I compute the average. So just mathematically it works out. If it's a 7-point scale, if you subtract whatever value somebody gave you from 8, it'll give you the flipped value, the reverse scored value. Okay, same thing here. See how I have welfare benefits is reversed? So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to go, whoops, where am I? I'm going to grab this cell, and it's the in column that I need to flip. So I'm going to come up here, put 8 minus in there, hit enter, and then it flips this last one. Okay, I'm also going to set both of these to 1 decimal place. And then I'm going to do that drag thing. And now I have those scales created for both social and economic conservatism. All right, at this point, I'm ready to do the correlations. So I'm going to come in here and set up a little table. And I am going to, oops, I got some of that formatting is leaking over here. So I'm just going to highlight this range I'm going to work in. Come up here to the fill button and just choose no fill. All right, so I'm going to come in here and use my correlation formula, which is quarrel equals quarrel. And then now I need to highlight the 2 arrays. The first thing I want to do, actually, let me back up. Sorry, let me type out here what correlations I want you to do. So first of all, let's look and see how our scaled values correlate with our self-reported values. So these last ones are just people indicating on a single item measure they're rating themselves on social conservatism. Whereas the scaled values, it's pulling that information from having to respond to different specific items. Okay, so I'm going to call this one here, let's call this self-report, self-reported social conservatism and scaled. Now let's clean that up, sorry. Self-reported and scaled social conservatism. There, that's better. And then I'm going to call this one, I still got that weird highlighting. I'm going to call this one self-reported and scaled economic conservatism. And then this last one, I'll call it scaled social and economic conservatism. Okay, so this first one, self-reported and scaled social conservatism, the social conservatism self-reported is here. So I'm going to grab that array and then hit comma. And then I'm going to grab the scaled value of that. And that's my R value. Okay, same thing for self-reported and scaled economic conservatism. So here's economic conservatism self-report. Whoops, sorry, I got to type the formula. So quarrel, left paren, grab those values, comma, grab these values, right paren, boom. And then this last one, social and I'm just going to correlate these 2 scaled values that I just got. So boom, and then right paren, gotcha. Okay, so I can clean this up a little bit. If I highlight this, go right click, and I go format cells, I can come in here and do this special customized formatting where I just go dot number, and that will then, if I type in that space, this is what examples it gives me. But this way, it's going to show up without the 0 in front of it or all the other numbers. It's just a little cleaner. Okay, so I'm going to center this column, and then I'm going to go Control Bold, Control U there. to get the titles, and it's centered, and I'm good. All right, almost there. I'm going to add some summary statistics now. So over here, I'm going to call this N, mean, and standard deviation. And for N, I just need to say count, and then highlight the values that I'm counting. For mean, I'm just going to say average, and then I'll highlight the values that I'm averaging. And then for standard deviation, I'm just going to go standard deviation.s, highlight the values. And I got that. All right, I'm going to set these last two, set the decimals to just 1, so it doesn't get so clunky. And then I'm going to highlight all 3 of these values, these formulas, and I drag them across, and it'll apply them all the way across. Now you'll notice I got these empty columns here, so I'm just going to come in here to clean this up and delete those. Okay, so now I have these summary statistics down here that are just summarizing what's going on with each separate item. Okay, and then the last thing we can do is add a scatter plot graph. So to do that, I'm going to select the columns I'm interested in, which is these 2 columns here. I'm going to graph this last one, the scaled social and economic conservatism. I'm going to come up here to insert, go to graphs or charts, and then there's one that's a scatter plot. I'm going to select that, select the most basic one. Boom. I'm going to come over here, shrink this down a little bit just so it fits. And I might, let's see, I'm going to do a little more shrinking just so I have a little more space. Okay, make this a little bigger. All right, so almost done. I'm just going to add some titles. So if I go up here to that plus, it lets me add axis titles. So I'm going to click on axis titles. So now I can come in here and label these things. So this one is self-reported, social, sorry, not self-reported, scaled social conservatism, and this is scaled economic conservatism. And then I'm going to label this whole thing relationship between social and economic conservatism. And if I expand this a little bit more, hopefully I can get this to fit on just... Is it going to fit on one line? It is not going to do that, so we're just going to leave that. Okay, and I believe that is it. All right, good job. Thank you.